Folks, we are in the first letter of Igeris HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe's holy writings. What we have explained till now is a verse from King Solomon. She girds her loins with strength. And we explained loins to mean faith. The loins are the inner part of thighs that a warrior would strengthen before going out to battle. And she strengthens. Who's the she? The soul. The soul needs strengthening in its faith. First, we explain what faith is. And what does the faith do? The loins hold up the body. Hold up the head, the torso, the arms, the heart. Which means our faith holds up appropriately for life's battles to have a proper mind and heart. That we use our mind and heart in the appropriate way. So what is faith? Faith is that God is both immanent and transcendent. That is our faith. Which is, why is it called faith? It's because we have no experience of that idea. How immanence and transcendence comes together as one. In other words, either you're engaged or you're aloof and beyond. You're not aloof and beyond and engaged at the same time. You can't be both. You're one or the other. Right? But God is both totally engaged in every detail of creation that he is found and creative of, and at the same time, beyond it, transcends it. That's our faith. Now, based on that, that will hold up our heads and our hearts. Our head, that we can now understand appropriately our connection to God, our relationship with God, how we are integral, important, how he does wonders for us, and how he wants to bring us near to him through Torah and mitzvahs, that we can have a relationship with him. In other words, if we don't have this faith in proper faith in God, then, we won't come to appreciate the miracles in our lives. We won't be able to appreciate our relationship with God and meditate upon it in our minds, that it will bring hearts a feeling of a rapturous love for God, or at least, a feeling towards God. We won't be able to have that. That's what we learned previously. Today, the Alter Rebbe explains to us, so what is it that girds the loins? What is it that strengthens the loins, strengthens our faith? Faith is faith. How do you strengthen it exactly? So to speak, like either you got it or you don't. Well, not true. Because the truth is we do got it. That faith is not extraneous to us, as a part of us. It's a reality of our soul that is a part of God, and therefore has the appreciation of being of God's presence, reality, that is immanent and transcendent. Memale and soivev in the Kabbalistic terminology. Found within the world, filling every aspect of creation, and beyond creation, meaning not defined by creation, not limited to the engagement within creation in enclosed manner within creation. So what feeds that? What nourishes that? What gives that strength? So the Alter Rebbe explains, it's actually the study of the Oral Torah. The Oral Torah is food that nourishes the soul's faith. And Jewish law in particular, of the Oral Torah. Why? So let's explain. We have the written book, the 5 books of Moses, And it's not the study of that will feed the faith, but it's the Oral Torah, because the Oral Torah explains and elaborates and illuminates and reveals the divine will of God. Meaning, there's 613 commandments of the Torah, but we don't know how to do anything in fulfillment of God's will through his commandments unless we study the Oral Torah. The Torah tells us about tefillin. The Torah tells us about Shabbos. It tells us about holidays. But how to celebrate it, if you would just read the 5 books of Moses, there's no way you would come away with any true appreciation or understanding on how to fulfill these mitzvahs. They are written in what I call short form, and they need to be elongated. They need to be elaborated upon. And where is that? In the Oral Torah. The Oral Torah elaborates and brings out the teachings as they're hidden within the written word. Therefore, it's only through the study of the Oral Torah can we, can we be attached to the will of God and fulfill the will of God. So, although Torah, we call it divine wisdom, but it unfolds from divine wisdom. It is actually much more profound than divine wisdom. It surpasses Chachma. It actually is the supreme will of God, which will encompasses intelligence. Will is beyond intelligence and hence encompasses intelligence. It is like the crown on top of the head that encompasses the head. The crown of the king, the will of God, encompasses the divine wisdom of God. And actually, if you recall, in God's name, if you recall, in the Tetragrammaton, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Yud represents Chachma, divine wisdom, and the thorn that sticks up is pointing up to the crown above, the will of God, that is beyond and encompassing and sustaining the divine wisdom. So, therefore, the Oral Torah reveals God's divine will that transcends the level of divine wisdom, and therefore it strengthens the loins. Why is it strengthening the loins? Because loins is also faith, but that faith is hidden within us. But when we learn the reveal will of God in the oral tradition, then that reveals and strengthens our faith. Study of Torah, divine will of God, the supernal divine will of God. That reveals and strengthens our faith. Again, because it transcends, just as it's the crown that transcends divine, even divine wisdom in a person's wisdom, it is able then to reveal and strengthen the faith that we have in each and every single one of us. And this is the idea of Eshes Chayil Teres Baila, that the woman of valor is the crown of her husband. What does it mean? The woman of valor is the crown of her husband. So it is a metaphor for us to understand. Woman refers to the Oral Torah. Man refers to the written Torah. So the woman, meaning the Oral Torah, crowns the written word, meaning crowning. It is beyond, it transcends, it is touching the transcendence of God, which is divine will. As the crown, as we explained, is beyond the head, which is the will, it encompasses the brain, and hence the divine wisdom. Therefore, as our sages say, that someone who studies Torah law every day, they're assured a place in the world to come. Why? Because we are strengthening our faith. And by that, then we understand she girds, she, the soul, girds, strengthens her loins, the faith that we have, that's a part of our makeup, part of our soul, with strength. And strength, of course, refers to Torah, because there's no other strength but Torah. That is true strength. That is the true strength, that there is no other strength but that. So now what happens when we gird, when we strengthen our faith through the study of the oral tradition? Then what will that do? It's going to fortify and hold up the rest of the body, which means the head, that our intelligence, now that we will understand the ways of God, God within creation, that then will lead us to strengthen our heart, meaning the love and awe of God. Because after all, ultimately, what God wants is that we have not merely faith in Him, strengthening our faith, and leave it there. That's not the relationship that He wants. He wants that relationship with faith, and now should become internalized. How's it going to be internalized, that faith? By contemplating, thinking about God with our intelligence, and then through that, a contemplated meditation that will lead to a love and awe of God. And when is that love and awe of God most, shall we say, auspicious, or the time for that? That's the morning prayers. In other words, to reveal the true supreme will of God in the time of compassion is the morning prayers. And this is what we need to do before we pray, to meditate upon the greatness of God, our relationship with God. And when we meditate upon that and then we come to pray, we will then reveal a love and awe towards God. And this is the ultimate, connection. We strengthen the loins, the faith, through the study of the Oral Torah. We then, that strengthens our faith, that will now allow us to use our minds appropriately. In other words, we all have a mind, but we all have a subjectivity. And if that subjectivity is not harnessed through our inherent faith that we have, then we will not be able to use our minds appropriately and to appreciate God and our relationship to God. And then the important point in that is that should lead to a feeling in the heart of a love and awe towards God. When will that love and awe truly be? The time for that is prayer. That's the time. Now, that's the end of the second section. In the third section of this letter that was written in 3 different time periods, the Alter Rebbe says he's asking a twofold request from the Hasidic Brotherhood. And that is that on all weekdays, it's not Shabbos and holidays, businessmen who don't have much time should not lead the congregation in prayers. Why? Because they're going to be in a hurry. But those who are not in a hurry should lead the prayers. Why? Because he would like it to go at a slow, easy pace, so that way you can truly pray to God in a heartfelt way. The Alter Rebbe says here, 1.5 hours for prayers. I'm not certain too many places do that today, to be quite honest. In our fast-paced life that we lead these days, I don't think that's really done to, an hour, maybe a little more than an hour in some places. Actually, our service is one of the slower ones. But this is what the Alter Rebbe is asking. Not to lead by someone who's in a rush, and it should be led by someone who's, who is either chosen by lot or by consent of the majority of the congregation, and that person should gather around them people who are serious in their prayers. So then it'll create a, communal sense of engagement in the prayer. And the Alter Rebbe says very strongly, I beg and beseech you to do this. That you should pray in such a manner. And on Shabbos and festivals, that businessman now who's not in a rush can then lead the service in a devout, concentrated manner, that the heart and the soul can be connected to God. And the Alter Rebbe says that my intention is actually to show you how serious this is for the Alter Rebbe. Remember, these are letters to communities. How serious is this? I'm going to send spies, he says, to the communities secretly to find out if people are being slothful in their engagement in prayer. Or are they taking it seriously? And he says that there will be actually consequences as a result. Remember, he's speaking to his community, to his Hasidim, the Hasidic Brotherhood, who of course take this very seriously. And he says, for those who are slothful in their prayers, they will be distanced from the teachings. So it's an interesting idea over here. In other words, they will not be able to come to him to hear his teachings. So, as he concludes, pleasant be the lot for those who hearken. May the blessings of goodness light upon them, and there's no good but Torah. And so he says that, if we will listen, so then they're welcome to come and hear from him the teachings. And if not, then, this is not your place. Which means as follows: the teachings, we've concluded the first letter. These teachings that we're learning in Tanya, they're not about an intellectual exercise. They're about changing our behavior, changing us. So here the Alter Rebbe is saying it needs to change, that we need to pray in a serious manner, and otherwise, what's the point of coming to hearing my teachings? My teachings are only in order to inspire you that you should, in this instance, pray in a heartfelt way. And if you're not, so there's no point to come for the teachings. And he says, we pushed away the distance with two hands, saying in a very strong and harsh manner. But that is the point of the teachings, is that it should change me. This is not scholastic endeavor. This is not about information. This is not a university. As in a university, it's only about information, and that information is merely information. Yeah, regurgitate it in your test, and you'll graduate. Here, it's not about regurgitating the information and graduating. Here, it's about what we are learning is meant to change us. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, you want to come and hear my words? Well, then I want to see consequences that it's changing you and that you're praying in an earnest and serious manner. And that's a lesson for all of us, of course, that these teachings are what they're meant to do. So, a lesson to take home. All right, folks. Well, I see my mother joined. Hello, Mom. Thank you for joining. And Marla, a good week. Mejoma from Buenos Aires, from Costa Rica. Thank you for joining. And Batya and David, thank you from Montreal. From Rio de Janeiro, Danielle. Thank you for joining, and good afternoon from Oxfordshire, England. Ariel, thank you for joining. Deborah, morning. Annie from Costa Rica, Shavua Tov. One Humanity, thank you. Dishan, Ashes Chayal, yes. Nurka, I think, if I got that right. Good morning. Melanie from Montreal, Barbara Shavua Tov, Pablo from Florida, Rachel, thank you for joining. Tracy and Susan from Hollywood, Florida, Naila Boker Tov, Chana. Okay, folks. So, important lesson in our lives. We're on a journey together. We're learning. We're not learning merely to make us smarter, as the divine wisdom comes from Chachma, but it's really much deeper. It's a divine will. There's God's will in all of this is that we should connect to Him, that we should be connected to Him through Torah and mitzvahs. That's what we're all about. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from my home in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful week, a Shavua Tov, a good Vach, a wonderful good week.